Ten Hag has impressed with Ajax over the last 4 seasons, predominantly using a 4-2-3-1 shape with Ajax. This video will dissect each of his last 4 seasons as part of the Team Tactics series, so feel free to check out the analysis of other head coaches in this playlist. Ten Hag's 2 formations most used have been the 4-2-3-1 and the 4-3-3. The 4-2-3-1 with the double pivot was used most with the 2021 and the 1920 seasons, as well as the 18-19 campaign. The 4-3-3 has then been used most in the 21-22 campaign, as well as the second half of the 17-18 season, in which Ten Hag joined halfway through. In his first full season in charge in 18-19, Ten Hag won the domestic double, whilst also reaching the semi-finals of the UEFA Champions League. The 1920 Dutch season was eventually abandoned due to Covid, so in his next full season, through 2021, Ten Hag once again won a domestic double. At the time of the video's release, Ten Hag's side is top of the Dutch league, but lost out to PSV in the Cup, ending hopes of a third domestic double. In the 18-19 season, Onana was the first choice goalkeeper. The fullback roles were filled by Tagliafico on the left and Mazraoui on the right. Veltman also appeared at right back, with a centre-back pairing of Blind and De Ligt. Ahead, the double pivot of De Jong and Schöne protected the back four, with Van der Beek as the number 10. Tadic and Ziyech operated as the 2 wingers, with Huntelaar as the single centre-forward. Tadic would also begin his number 9 role in this season, with Neres then attacking from the left. But with Tadic predominantly used on the left side, Dolberg would also attack as Ten Hag's single centre-forward. In attack through the 18-19 season, Van der Beek's forward runs into the right inside channel often vacated the number 10 spaces. But Tadic as the left winger would often hold his position on this side, providing frequent crosses into the aerially strong Huntelaar or Dolberg to attack. The number 10 space was then exploited by a variety of players, with Tagliafico sometimes inverting from left back as an example. Ziyech from the right side would often dribble inside with the ball, as well as drifting through the inside channel, not only allowing Mazraoui to lap, but not choking the spaces around Van der Beek. Whenever Schöne moved across in the double pivot, De Jong pushed forward, again exploiting the vacant number 10 space. If this movement was tracked though, then Blind as the centre-back would step into the midfield. As Schöne dropped out, De Jong would then become the main single pivot, helping connect the central players into Ajax's wider threats. Here, Van der Beek is pushed into the right inside channel, freeing the number 10 space. Tadic stays wide as Tagliafico moves in from left back. Veltman at right back has overlapped around Ziyech, with left centre-back Blind also moving forward to support the double pivot. When defending in the 18-19 season, Ten Hag centre-forward would lock the play towards one side of the pitch using an outward press. Both wingers then narrowed in a very aggressive front line as the number 10 dropped onto the deepest pivot player. Ajax's double pivot then marked, with the fullbacks ready to individually jump into the wide areas whenever needed. Against Tottenham in the Champions League, Tadic has pressed across the pitch as the single centre-forward. Wingers Ziyech and Neres now narrow as a very tight front line. Van der Beek jumps onto the deepest pivot, with Ajax's double pivot of De Jong and Schöne man marking as Veltman at right back ready to jump forward and press. In the 1920 season, De Ligt joined Juventus. With Dest added to the right back position, Veltman filled in at right centre back. The double pivot of De Jong and Schöne also departed, replaced by Martinez and Alvarez. Whenever Veltman was used at right back, Martinez would then fill in at centre back. Van der Beek would then drop into the double pivot as Ziyech attacked as the central number 10. Neres then filled in from the right side. Tadic, now as the permanent centre forward, then saw promise as the left winger. In this 1920 season, Ajax would attack with Tadic dropping as the centre forward, now overloading alongside number 10 Ziyech. With the double pivot slightly withdrawn, both wingers then pushed inside. The fullbacks could then stretch high and wide, now attacking around, as the biggest difference was Ten Hag changed from freeing the 10 space for others to rotate into it to now overloading that same space. During more central build-up, Ajax combined and connected very well before Tadic would drift across to the left side to further support his crossing play. Here, this demonstrates Tadic's dropping, helping overload the midfield alongside Ziyech. Wingers move inside, Both fullbacks Mazraoui and Tagliafico are preparing to push forward via their overlapping runs. When defending the 1920 campaign, Ajax's wingers continued to narrow, but defended from much deeper starting positions. The double pivot condensed, with a centre-forward still locking the play one way. But Ajax's wingers would still jump to press from this withdrawn position, especially supported by the fullbacks who also jumped into the wide areas. As the rest of the back four moved across, the far winger, again slightly more withdrawn than the season prior, helped push the double pivot deeper. This narrow position also helped push the double pivot across, so they could cover the inside channel and further support the jumping fullback. This particular press is demonstrated against Chelsea, where Tadic has locked the play onto one side and both wingers are pressing from a withdrawn position. Dest jumps out from right back, with Martinez and Alvarez preparing to move and cover into the closest inside channel. Moving into the 2021 season, Dest and Velman departed Ajax, with Ten Hag converting Martinez into a centre-back. Gravenberch was used in the vacant double pivot space, with Mazraoui returning to the right-back position as Wrench was also operated on this side. Timber and Schurz gave Ten Hag some much-needed depth in the centre-back positions through this season. However, both Van der Beek and Ziyech both departed for the Premier League. Klaassen was then brought in as the number 10, with Neres used on the right side, as well as new signing Antony. Tadic moved back to his role on the left, with Traore and Labyad also used in the centre-forward position until Sebastian Haller arrived from West Ham United. In attack, Ajax focused on their wide triangles. Klaassen as the 10 pushed high into the central areas, working around Haller, with Mazraoui overlapping, Neres narrowing, and the closest of the double pivot covering underneath. This sometimes saw a back three form, with Tagliafico narrowing on the left. The other double pivot player temporarily became a single pivot, as play into this rotating triangle was key for Ten Hag's side. Tadic still held the width to cross from the left. Anytime the opposition covered the central spaces, Ajax heavily relied on the central trio of Haller, Klaassen, and the inverted right winger to create in the central spaces. Runs from Tadic and Mazraoui then offered to penetrate around the opposing block. This wide triangle can be seen here on Ajax's right side, with Tagliafico then holding his position to help form the back three. Tadic stays out on the left, with Alvarez the single pivot supporting the main central trio in attack. When defending in 2021, Ajax's centre-forward would often withdraw, pushing the double pivot and number 10 deeper. This helped form a tight foursome in the central areas, where from here both wingers aggressively pressed inward as Ajax's first line. Ten Hag's fullbacks then ready to push forward, often beginning in line with the double pivot, where if needed, one of these central players could drop back in cover. Against PSV, Ajax have pressed with wingers Tadic and Antony working inwards as the centre-forward is withdrawn, supporting the 10 and double pivot. Both fullbacks are also ready to defend around and alongside this central midfield unit. Through the 21-22 season, Ten Hag has been forced to change his goalkeeper, with Pasveer the first choice until Onana's return from his ban. Blind has also been moved to a left-back role, with Timber now partnering Martinez in central defence. Another key change has seen a more permanent single pivot used by the 4-3-3 shape. Berghuis has been added as an attacking midfielder, with the front line remaining the same. When attacking through 21-22, Antony has held the width on the right side, creating more room for vertical runs through the inside channel from Ajax's right number 8. Further rotations also occur as Mazraoui moves inwards from right back. With Tadic also moving inside on the left, Blind can then support around. Berghuis then operates more as a 10 as Tadic is pushed inwards. Further rotations in central midfield then occur, as Ajax's play around has also been a key part of their process. When up against more defensive midfield units, the 9 and 10 pairing then threaten around and beyond the opposing centre-backs, with inside channel runs being key for Ten Hag's side. These central midfield rotations can be seen here, as Antony holds the width on the right and Tadic inverts from the left. Mazraoui at right back then inverts, with Daley Blind holding a wider position around the central midfield trio's rotations. When defending through 21-22, Ten Hag's side still pressed high, as the centre-forward no longer drops like the season prior. Both wingers continue to press high and in, with the two number 8s also advanced, now applying pressure in the central areas much earlier. Ajax's fullbacks continue to jump out and press into the wide areas, as Ten Hag's single pivot then covers a cross, further supported by the winger and number 8 on the far side of the ball. Against Dortmund, Ajax showcased this press with a very high front trio supported by the 2 high number 8s. Blind as the left back has also taken up his high pressing position as single pivot Alvarez readies to press and cover across the pitch when needed. The most impressive aspect of Ten Hag's tenure has been his ability to consistently rebuild his side, especially after key departures. From his most successful side, particularly in Europe, the likes of De Jong, De Ligt, Ziyech and Van der Beek have all departed for significant fees, arguably have yet to reproduce the form they showed at Ajax under Ten Hag. This has brought in significant income for the club without necessarily hampering their abilities to win trophies, certainly domestically. Therefore, with Manchester United needing a significant rebuild of new players and investment, Ten Hag has certainly demonstrated he can adapt his style of play over time whilst also embedding new players into his philosophy. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to like, comment, share and subscribe, and don't forget to suggest any new ideas for the channel. Please also check out the latest book from the channel titled Football in a Pandemic, an insight into the strategies and tactics used during the COVID-19 pandemic.